discussing the National Environmental Policy Act, how that relates to you as citizens of Guam in relation to the military buildup here projected on the island. One of the important things to understand about the the NEPA process is that any significant federal action triggers this. So this is a standard regulatory structured process that is engaged anytime a major activity is occurred. Now, that could be building a bridge, a highway, or in this case, it's a massive military buildup here on the island. The other component is to this process is that it involves the public, the regulatory agencies, and the proponent, in this case, it's the Department of Defense. What we've accomplished for you is develop a brochure to help you have a better understanding and take away tonight to describe that process, as well as an additional study that is focused in on the socio-economic impacts that will accompany the military buildup and how they'll be addressed and analyzed. So this is something important to read when you get a chance. It's important to understand how people of Guam are in this position today and why there is a perceived or projected military buildup here. It goes back almost 10, 12 years as the DOD was looking at restructuring forces. Congress told the Department of Defense that before you would look at realigning and closing bases in the United States, you needed to look at the force structure overseas in Europe and the Pacific. They had accomplished those studies prior to doing the base realignment and closure, which was in 2001. The results of that was approximately 15% of the forces in the Pacific were going to be realigned and brought back to the United States. And in Europe, over 50% of the forces were realigned and brought back to the United States. So you are just one of numerous communities within the United States that are seeing the same type of activity, a massive buildup of U.S. forces in their community, whether it's Georgia, Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas, Colorado. They're going through the same process with their citizens, with their state regulatory agencies, and with the military to work through the challenges associated with that. In the case here in Guam, the lead agency is the Navy, even though there are Army, Air Force, and Navy components as well as the Marines. They understood that this was a challenge, so they created the JIGPO, the Joint Guam Program Office, to be able to integrate these major actions. One of the important things to understand is that there are three major components to this environmental impact statement. There is the carrier berthing, the ability to expand Apple Harbor and support a carrier battle group. It also is the deployment of an Army theater ballistic missile defense system to protect the island of Guam, and also the relocation of the Marines, approximately 8,000 Marines and its forces to Guam. So each one is separate, but in this study they've combined them together. Another important component that you need to take away as citizens is that you're not alone in trying to step through this process of looking at the effects of the buildup and looking at how to mitigate or minimize those impacts. As soon as it was engaged, the collaborating agencies, cooperating agencies that are listed here, plus several more, are engaged to look at those aspects too. They have specific charters to protect the welfare of natural resources, the health and welfare of the citizens of the United States. And so they, in conjunction with the partnering agencies, which are your local agencies, the GovGuam agencies, are working together to look at those concerns, those issues, and come up with strategies and plans to minimize, mitigate those adverse actions. The other important thing that you got to remember is that the citizens of Guam have already participated in this process. They actually started the process. Back in 2007, there were scoping meetings that were held on Guam and out in Dededo. The citizens of Guam participated in this and generated over 1,000 comments. These comments came into about 21 different categories. It's very important to understand that in the NEPA process, that became the format, the framework in which the Department of Defense had to start looking at the impacts. So it's very important to understand that you've been heard and you're going to have another opportunity to be heard as this draft document is being developed. What is your role? What we know is that JICPO has a site, a lot of information is on it, all that scoping information, all the comments that Citizens of Guam have provided is there for your access today. So it's one of the ways to get prepared for the draft EIS, which is targeted to come out approximately the 20th of November. If you've been reading the papers, you understand that the governor and the senators have requested an extension, and it was provided by the Department of Navy. And now there's about a 90-day review period instead of 45 days. So they increased the period to give everybody a better opportunity to provide their inputs and to shape the document. The other part is, of this process that's important for you as citizens of Guam to know is within that 21 categories that were identified in the scoping period, there was a significant amount of concerns and issues associated with the social, economic, and cultural component. There was so much of that in this process, they developed a separate report that is a more detailed analysis of those issues, and it's embedded within the overall EIS. So again, it's important to understand that the process is responding to your inputs. They did data collection, talked with the agencies, and are looking at a multitude of concerns. Some of them are highlighted on the slide, but also there are ongoing studies that are still in process that are going parallel to this EIS process before we get to the final document. The key here that I wanted to point out and why we're here tonight is to help you understand your role and how you as citizens can have your voice heard and how you can input into the process. And as I mentioned before, providing inputs for an extension of the period. Your leadership of the island of Guam have already accomplished that, and we're moving forward. The next component would be to do your homework. As I mentioned, the information is on the websites right now. Know what your citizens have already requested, what identified of concerns. If those concerns are not identified, then you have another opportunity to add them in this process. By knowing what has been requested or your concerns, now you can look at the document in your review and see if they addressed it, if they addressed it thoroughly or completely to your satisfaction, and then comment again. Be aware through the media when that opportunity comes up. It should be broad-based, there should be print, there should be radio and television announcing when that period begins. And JICPO is providing a multitude of ways for the citizens and the agencies of the island of Guam to obtain that information, whether it's electronically or hard copy, for you to provide your inputs. They're also proposing to use the Buildup centers as a means by an outreach to the people, having the hard copies in the reading rooms, the ability to get copies on a CD disc for your ability to accomplish your review.